You're listening to the Go Be the Church podcast.
I think that there's can be a very pivotal role as the church for a kiddo.
I'm not going to get it right all the time, and I don't have to get it right for God. He's going to love me no matter what.
The end goal is ultimately, like, how can I point you to Jesus?
Parents make the biggest impact. Even if they're not there for certain amounts of time, the family is going to make the biggest impact on the kids.
Some older parent told me, was like, you want your house to be a place where the kids want to come.
Raising kids today can feel like walking a tightrope, balancing school, screen time, and social pressures, all while trying to raise them in the fear and love of God. In this episode, we're sitting down with two teachers and parents who are navigating the highs, lows, and unexpected lessons of integrating faith into everyday life. From the dinner table to the classroom to Sunday school, we'll explore practical ways to disciple your kids, have honest conversations about God, and let faith shape every part of family life. Whether you're a parent, grandparent, or mentor, this conversation will give you fresh insight and maybe even a few holy disruptions on what it means to raise kids who love Jesus.
For this episode of the podcast, we have a couple of guests. We're going to be talking about parenting, raising kids, and really wherever else the Spirit takes us. But first, for people who may not know you, I would like you both to introduce yourselves.
All right. Well, I'm Elaine Stone, and I'm the kids pastor here at First Christian Church. My education experience is in elementary education, so middle school math teacher for a lot of years, and stay-at-home mom for a lot of years, and substitute, and now doing the kids pastor thing.
I'm Jackie Risley, married to this guy. Teacher, high school teacher for several years in the Spanish World Language Department, and I just made the switch to in the same district over in Mahomet for K-12 multilingual teacher. So I'm in awesome. And out of a lot of our buildings and a lot of our classrooms, which is awesome.
Grant Risley. I taught in St. Joe for 15 years. I did 5 years in fifth grade, so elementary education was my major. And then I did 10 years in middle school, science and social studies. And this past year was my first year actually moving back to Mahomet. And I was the dean of students this year. But here at church, we both do children's ministry stuff. So awesome. Jackie's actually in like one of the little classrooms with our youngest. And then I do some of the large group stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Also, we're all parents of boys.
Yes.
So I've got adult to adult boys, and you guys have three in the throes of parenting.
Almost 12, 10, and 4.5.
Yeah. Nice. So and I provide the only girl parent experience in there with Skylar and Selah.
That's right.
So that works. And how old are your boys, Elaine?
25 and 22. Out on their own.
Yeah, so you provide a lot of cool insight there. It is possible to get kids to adulthood.
Right.
There are times where I'm like,
gives us all hope.
Need some of that hope. That's awesome.
Every stage is just a different challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Parenting toddlers, you thought it was going to be like, oh, if they can just do this, then it'll be better. And then they start doing that, and you're like, okay, if we could only go back.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Ours is every kid is a different challenge.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yours are probably the same.
True.
Same.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in there. I'm curious with so I know my experience, my girls could probably not be any more different than one another, even in the sense of we have a lot of shirts and shorts that Skylar really liked. She's a little bit more kind of tomboyish. Selah will not wear anything but dresses. So that kind of threw off our whole this is great. We're having another girl. We're not going to have to rebuy a bunch of this stuff, because they're very, very different personality wise and everything. So has that kind of been the same experience with you guys? Or?
I mean, the clothing thing really isn't a factor. I feel like they're all the
Your
same.
Boys don't like dresses versus shirts and shorts.
They're
Okay,
just
good to know.
mostly all the same in that regard. But personality-wise and kind of what makes them tick is pretty different. I've always said that our second teaches me the most because I think our first is most like my personality, and our second is most like Grant's personality.
Okay.
And our youngest is our wild card.
Nice.
So it keeps us both on our toes.
Yeah. And with your boys,
personality's different. Like I had one as a baby that could not be put down, physically had to be touching me all the time. And then the other one was like, I want nothing to do with you. If I'm ready to sleep, just put me down and walk away.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
Awesome.
And to this day, they're still like when they get sick or whatever, they still fall back into that need that they've got.
Yeah, that's fun.
I like that they all seem to have the same interests, but the way they approach all of the same things are very different.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
would
great.
say that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you give an example? I'm curious.
I mean, so for instance, like they're all interested in sports per se at some level. So like oldest is super focused on like everything and very rigid, like you'd think of like a type A
Firstborn.
kid, firstborn. And then our second is just more like go with the flow. Like I want to play sports, but I just want to hang out with my friends. And then the other one just wants to do it because his brothers do. So
Nice. What are some challenges? I'm curious. You've shared a little bit just in how, kids can be different and whatnot, but, how has your approach kind of shifted as you've added each subsequent kid? Have you noticed that, you were prepared and thought, okay, first one, you learn some things, you try some things, second one comes along, and then I imagine if it's anything like my situation, things are different. Like how has that been with the different approaches, or like having to pivot based on different personalities or anything like that?
I think, the switch from 1 to 2 was hard for me. I think they were close in age, so it, kind of felt like 2 babies at once. And at the time, Grant had a lot of other projects going on, I remember. So it was just that time of life was unique in that way as far as like approach. But I think we pretty much have the same, like he said, our kids are very different. Their personalities are very different, but we don't differ that much in our like expectations of them, I would say, or our approach to parenting.
I think, and this might come up later, but I think we're pretty consistent. I think that's a benefit, is like they know that we'll hold them to those standards. I do think though, because they're different, we try to figure out sometimes how to approach them. One might be a little more soft-hearted, so let's like, how do we soften the blow sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And then like we said, like our oldest is more just, he needs like direct instruction, and sometimes he needs space. And so like,
and sometimes I feel like he could just take care of the other 2 if they would listen.
Yes,
he could probably just parent with us. But we also have, I feel like in a way, we're really a little unqualified for this because our kids are quite a bit younger, and time will tell how they all turn out,
and
right?
that's with the youngest
We're
one.
not done yet.
Yeah, with the youngest one, it's like I'm still learning. I mean, we're still learning the other 2 as well, but I'm still learning like kind of what shapes him and molds him, and like how do we have to be with him. Yeah.
It makes you feel better. I'm still learning too.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
Feels like, though, if you have that middle school experience, I kind of feel like every stage is kind of present in a middle schooler at some point, though.
Sure.
Like there are times where they
Yeah.
act like toddlers.
Yeah.
There's times where they
Probably
act.
true.
This is from, I was in student ministry for a long time, so if people are like, what is he talking about? But there would be times where it's like, okay, you need very simple, easy to follow instructions right now. And then there's other times where, wow, that is a very philosophical, deep level of connection. And oftentimes in the same conversation,
Yeah.
As they're just kind of figuring themselves out and as their brain just kind of continues to develop. And I know you've shared some stories.
Middle schoolers are successful preschoolers, right? They can build a model out of Play-Doh. They can color in the lines, do all those things, but successfully. So
Yeah. So going into some of the questions that have been come up just as we've been thinking about this topic, and would love your guys' thoughts and input on. So in your mind, what does it actually mean to raise children in the Lord, especially given like our culture climate, given just a lot of the other messages that are kind of coming out about how to raise your kids or how not to raise your kids? Like for you, what does it mean to raise them in the Lord?
I mean, I think ours is probably going to be a little bit different where our kids are and where Elaine's kids are, but then I also have like some similarities because some of the stuff we don't get to the point where we're explaining everything to them. It's more like giving them opportunities. So coming here on Sundays or going to their Awana thing that they finished up this year, or Levi did, on Wednesdays, or, what you listen to in the radio, like giving them exposure, giving them sometimes explicit instruction, but other times it's just they need to learn from us. So it's not so much necessarily like what's the world. Now, as they get older, what's in the world is going to be more put in their face. But having nobody that's in middle school yet, they're all third, in
Yeah.
5th grade and not in school. So Levi, our oldest, he'll ask questions, and we will give him, well, this is what we think. This is kind of what the Bible says about this. But we know that, as probably Elaine's going to say, is, well, as they get older, they have to make their own decisions. And so it's showing them like what we believe, why we believe it, and how we walk it. I would say is probably the most important thing that we do. I don't know if that
Yeah.
answers the question, but
No, I like that.
I mean,
Yeah, what do you think?
talk about keep yourself in check. When somebody asks you to talk about your expertise in parenting, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I better make sure, I'm towing the line too, because
Yes.
that definitely is a bit of a mirror, and you want to make sure that whatever they're seeing, as far as following the Lord and being in the Lord, is what they're able to emulate, because it's what you're doing and not
Yeah.
the opposite. So,
and we've had those conversations before.
It's tough to call each other out, and
Yeah.
it's tough to hear it, and it's tough to make it right. But
Things I appreciate
Work in
about you
progress.
guys is like it's their identities in Christ, and not like just follow your heart or do what feels right,
Yeah.
but like grounding everything back to like, hey, that's not how Jesus would want us to act. Or, when we read the Bible and it says this, that's not how you're like acting right now. So how can I help you change your heart to have a better heart posture?
And a lot of times it's like, boom, corrective behavior that we see that we don't like. And sometimes I have to figure out, is that just because I don't like them doing that? And then it's coming back around to that later. I'm like, hey, I know I corrected this and I was really sharp and really hard. Let me tell you why this is what needed to be corrected. And then that's where usually I'll relate it back to, okay, do you guys see the connection here? But usually, sometimes one of my sinful nature is I'm too sharp, too intense, too cutting. And so bringing it back and kind of putting it there level and playing field.
yeah, he is really good about coming back. I'm more of like wanting to deal with it, and then just if I'm mad or if I'm sharp about something, I don't come back around, and that's something I'm working on. But he's really good at making sure they hear what's really important, even after maybe the harsher correction.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Well, it's super hard in the moment sometimes too. I know sometimes they almost need that shock in a sense to like kind of snap out of whatever is causing the meltdown or whatever, is they're continuing in a behavior or something that could hurt them, and you need to be like quick and everything like that. And there's times, as you said too, I imagine, each kid's going to kind of respond to it differently, but I think it is such a good habit to get into, to be able to say, all right, the reason that I raised my voice was, and sometimes it's because I had a rough day.
Sure.
This was the last straw. Like,
Admitting fault is very important.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think even at that like 3-4-year-old stage, I think they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, you're 5th grader, and you said 3rd grade is the
Yeah.
other? Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to be a little bit more logical, a little bit more able to kind of understand what you're saying. But I think even the young ones it's really good to cultivate that habit, because it's like, hey, the reason that I raised my voice was because you're about to run out into the street and I needed you to stop now. So I'm sorry I scared you, but
But it was meant to scare you.
it was kind of
to
meant to get you to stop.
put you in check. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And on the flip side of that, like if it's just I lost my marbles and then I need to own that, because
exactly.
you're going to lose your marbles too. And when you do that, I expect you to own it and come back to me and apologize for that, because we're all imperfect, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And Jackie, you shared too. I really like that idea that it is a lot of modeling it as well, and for both of you, that idea of like, I'm going to apologize to you when I, raise my voice, or if I lose my temper, or whatever it looks like, even if, I sin against you, even in a small way, I'm going to come to you, I'm going to apologize, I'm going to seek reconciliation, because I want that for you. I want you to do that with your siblings. I want you to do that with us. I want you to learn that pattern.
And forgiveness. Like, you should forgive me for these behaviors. We've been forgiven. Like,
Yeah.
And growing up, my dad was really good about being super intense and having a high expectation, but also being very loving. So I think that was probably one of the easier things for me, is to like equate, like, okay, God is just, he has, not necessarily rules, but a way that you should live, but he's also going to take you under his wing. And I think that made it easier to become a Christian, just because the way that again, what I saw as a kid. It wasn't that my dad was even preaching Christianity. I knew that's how a father or dad's love was. So I think it just made it easier to connect that way.
I like that. It's really good. Thinking kind of similar, and we touched on just a little bit, but like, where have you seen the gospel challenge your kind of instincts in parenting, or maybe the ways that you've seen it modeled in your as a kid with your parents, things that you were taught that either strengthened your understanding of the gospel and you saw it lived out, or ways in which the gospel kind of challenged how you parent?
So I think for me, parenting just sometimes brings out my worst instincts, whether it's I want to be in control, or I'm expecting perfection. But the gospel calls me to be something better. And just that constant reminder of, I'm not going to get it right all the time. And I don't have to get it right for God. He's going to love me no matter what, whether I get it right or wrong. And the only thing I can do is try to do better each day.
Yeah,
I like that.
It's funny, in this room, I believe you can tell me, like, we used to sing the Beatitude song, or the Fruits of the Spirit song.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And like, you think of like that song with all the hand motions, and like sometimes sometimes I have to be patient. Sometimes I have to have a little joy in something that it's hard to find it in. And sometimes, when I'm parenting, I don't do those things.
Yeah.
It is funny how many kids' songs come back and just replay in your head at just the right moment, or you're reading it in scripture and you can't just read it. You got to sing it in your head. And
It's like the books of the Bible.
those are the things that things that we do with our kids, but they also infuse us.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, and you just, like Jackie said at the beginning, you asking us to come do this was you start just being a little more reflective, and it's...
We are a church, and that we're a community of Christians where if we see something going well in another parent, or we see something, we're like, wow, you really handled your kid's breakdown super well. To be, able to kind of share those things. And one of those is the reason that we wanted you guys on here is because we've seen the results in your kids. We see how you parent your kids. We have an opportunity to see how that your experience in the school world equates to your kids, even though the age ranges are very different. The things you're teaching can be very different. Although I imagine your boys are going to have a very an advantage in Spanish when they start taking it, but
maybe
live in tutor.
We'll see.
Yeah,
We'll
right.
see.
If they and it's funny because another thing that I love just about how you've been willing to serve and you've been willing to intentionally get in is not just for you to spend that time with your boys, but also for you to have an opportunity to interact with the other kids and the other students, and
I feel like that's
so
a big
many
perk
different.
of working not just in kids ministry, but at the schools. I feel privileged to know all the kids and see who they're living each day with.
And it's fun when they see, if I see a kid here and then I see them at school.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice, easy connection to make. And they appreciate that. Oh, we're the same here in school. We're the same here in church. Oh, you can do both. It's not separate worlds.
Yeah. Do they ever, the first time they see you at school when they've known you at church for a long time, do they have that, shock?
For him,
For
probably
me,
more
it's the
so.
opposite.
Oh,
'Cause
okay.
he
Because
just
they've
came-
seen me here, and then they're like, wait, yeah, I see you.
Because he just switched districts.
But now it's going the other way. There's a couple kids that are in the older, I went over to look for a student that was in the older group once, and I'm walking through there and they're like, Mr. Risley, because I'm usually with the little kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was just kind of different for them. Why? What are you doing here?
Well, and especially as an administrator, I hope that the kids don't instantly get guilty when they see you and be like,
No.
oh no, Mr. Risley's here.
I would say more so my job at school is, it says Dean of Students, more like behavior coach. It's almost, they're not to that level where they understand everything. So it's more like coaching the behavior, almost kind of like what we're talking about here is trying to get them moving in the right direction.
I was gonna say, and I watch you on Sunday mornings, even with some of our, more challenging kids or whatever, you just kind of come alongside them and the relationship is there. And so having that relationship matters, but then also not shying away from saying, hey, we're really not going to do that right now. Here's what I need you doing instead. And I know you can do a great great job in kind of twisting their thought process around to like, oh, I can be successful.
Well, they're a lot like toddlers. Like we all know the trick. Like, okay, if I can distract them from what is bothering them and move them on, like you can say, oh, hey, we're not gonna do that, but so they get a little bit of the instruction of what we need to change, and then, but let's give you something else to take your mind.
We talk about parenting, but also I think teachers do play a really big role in raising kids. I mean, that's you often get to spend just as many hours during the day with a lot of the kids as their parents get to at different times and whatnot. And in all of these different areas, whether it's in the home, at the church, in school, I'm kind of curious, like, just what's your thought as far as how the church kind of integrates into those spaces? Like, are there places you wish you would see more of the church community kind of come alongside in raising kids? Are there places in which you're like, I don't really know if the church should be in that in that area? Or
I think it's hard. I think if the church only has so many resources, it needs to do what it does well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's the same thing at school. Parents make the biggest impact. Even if they're not there for certain amounts of time, the family is going to make the biggest impact on the kids. So, I mean, it's nice that parents expect schools to do so much and they think they can, and they are joyful when it does happen. And it's nice when parents think churches can, make sure my kid grows up to be a Christian.
Right.
But really, that's not the church. The church can't do that. It can be a nice little segue into that. Parenting can be that, but really that's the kid and Jesus. But you can give them a lot more in routes to get to the goal.
Mm-hmm. I think, my own experience was like I had a Christian home, loving family, and that's where my core values come from. But I had major impact by our like church youth group, junior high school years, and then even in college too. Like, and so you think about, I want to have what I think my kid needs and be able to give that to them. But I know that they're going to look elsewhere for influence. And I know that they're going to, glean things from who they're around and what they're involved in. And so I think that there's can be a very pivotal role as the church for a kiddo. But, I don't think as a parent, I should depend on that necessarily.
Okay.
I think, especially if I'm not like willing to come alongside and support or serve or, whatever. Because that's a big expectation. I think it's our job, number one. But kind of looking ahead to see where those influences can come from as they move down. I mean, we only have a 12-year-old. We're not quite 12. So we're not there yet. And I know that, but I know just from my own life that like I still think about things I learned in junior high school youth group.
And we were both lucky to have coaches or sponsors or people that
teachers
were involved in other things that were also connected to the churches that we grew up in, or that maybe it wasn't from the church that we grew up in, but was from a different church or a different sect that was able to kind of merge some of those things, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
We've talked before, like, Sunday mornings, we get your kids for an hour, right? So that's 52 hours a year. And that's minute, start to stop. If we had every minute going just exactly as we wanted it to go, and 52 hours a year is like nothing. It's a drop in the bucket, right? So the relationships that they build with their classroom volunteers, with their large group teachers, those matter. But if that's all they're getting, it's not enough. Like we need parents at home speaking into the spiritual formation of kids. And then that's where that village piece comes in also, right? Our community here at church, when you've got other people that can speak into your own kids. I know you guys have probably experienced this, like you've said something to your kids over and over and over.
100%.
And then somebody else says it, and you're like, wow, Mom.
I'm like,
and you're like,
what else can I tell that person to tell you?
Seriously.
But that's wonderful. I'm so glad you heard that.
Yep, exactly. Oh, that's the truth. But I know I was the exact same way with my parents. So
human nature, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You need those other voices to come in and supplement. And I think we kind of, as parents, it's our detriment of thinking like we need to be the only voice that our kids hear. And like, we want them to listen to us for sure. But I don't know if it's, being in student ministry as long as I was, but I just realized that like complementary voices are always super helpful, and challenging voices are helpful too. There are some times where I think as much as that, that encouragement has that much more weight when it comes from somebody else. I think sometimes challenge has even that much more weight when it comes from somebody else too. When it's like, oh, my parents have been saying that to me, and now this teacher is saying that to me. Maybe there is something here, It's one of those where I definitely don't hear you saying that, that 52 hours a week isn't important, but to get to where, right. And to supplement those things, but that's what it needs to be. It has to be a supplement, because if that's what we're expecting, I can't imagine us expecting 52 hours a year of anything to have that big of an impact, when you really think about it. Like, if anything, it should be supplementing or, creating those inroads for other things.
Some of those things are like, hey, at church, we learned about this within that small 20-minute time where they might get a large group, or that, 20, 15 minutes where they're with their small group, whatever it is. And then they bring it home and they want to like look into it. Then sometimes that hour can extend, or like if somebody, one of the kids that's in, let's say that 3rd to 5th grade room over there, if they see me and then they see how I treat people at school, sometimes that's what but that hour that they saw me sometimes can turn into more over time. But that's why that hour is still so important. But it sometimes just gets multiplied based off of the connections that you make.
It's amazing how God multiplies stuff,
Yes,
right?
yes.
We offer up that hour and he turns it into actual spiritual formation.
Well, and like one of the youth groups that our kids went to, and Emmett will still go to it, but it's on a Wednesday night. And they have like, oh, for next week, you have a reading challenge. And so even though they're only there for that hour and a half, boom, okay, now I've got to get this. So it adds to sometimes that goal mindset, or, oh, I need to do something, gives them a chance to read, gives them a chance to dive into the Bible. And it's better than just Jackie and I saying, hey, you guys need to, read this book or this verse, or So it's that is super helpful as far as it's us getting them there as the parent side. Then that part of the church pushing them further is where it's helpful.
Yeah, one of the things that we started doing a couple years ago was like all of our kids 2 years old through 18 are all studying the exact same scripture. So like if you've got kids, in church, like you can go home and you can have a conversation with your whole family. And even the little one can say, oh yeah, I heard that story, or, and so they're learning by hearing the conversations that can naturally take place. So,
and it's nice for me, even when I'm revisiting it before a Sunday, and I'm like, oh yeah. So then the older boys come through and I'm like, did you know? And so, it really works well for us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good job.
That's cool.
Good job.
Yeah. You're doing great.
Not me.
What are some of those rhythms that you've kind of been putting into place at home? You talk about, wanting to have opportunities to talk with your boys when you come home from church, and being able to talk about the same scripture and everything else. But I'm curious, like, are there certain rhythms throughout the day, the week, even just like on Sundays that you found that work for your family that maybe some of our listeners could benefit from?
I think this is something that we need to do better at.
Yeah.
But I think Jackie, like, even just like on their way to school, like she would talk about like conversations they had. And so that is like sometimes their time. So now that we're both in the same school district, like she like doesn't want to give them up, because that's that conversation time.
Seriously, though,
where they can talk about those times. But like I said, Sundays, coming to church and also being involved. It's been nice that like even some leaders like, hey, and they'll give the kids jobs to do. And so our kids are like, oh, I got to make sure I do this week. I want to be there. So that can be helpful.
But at home, like practical things, we try to pray before meals. We try to, I did not do very much of this last school year, but for several years when the big boys were little, we would like pray on the way to school every morning. And they would maybe have a turn, or they would say things that they want to pray about. Kind of gives you a little insight to their school day, or what they're wondering about, or what they're worried about, or those sorts of things. We do, so through the thing they go to on Wednesday nights, they do memorizing a lot of scripture, like a weekly thing. And then I know we have our verses here at church that we get the verse cards. We haven't, that's something that, we have like expectations in other areas, but we don't have a great rhythm, I would say.
And Jackie does a good job of like reading with the boys every night. And so she has done a really good job of like giving them a foundation. So like, okay, so when we read this, but we have a crazy amount of books that are versions of the little kids' Bible, of children's Bibles and stuff that they've memorized stories, and like our youngest Garrett or Levi, and Emmett, they would just pick a certain story. So they read those, and we were religiously when they were little kids all the time. And so that foundation was really good for them. So that's something that I did not do growing up, and Jackie's family more so did. And so like the biblical knowledge that our kids have is way ahead of like where I was at their age, and what they know and what they can recall and remember, because that's kind of where they started their reading journey. Now they like to read other books as well.
Oh, for sure.
But that is kind of was always their go-to growing up. So that's been a good base for them.
Mm-hmm.
But love reading as a teacher, right? Like that's never something to take away as a consequence, or right? Like,
although we have done it.
Yeah, because that's what they want to do at night.
Well, you know, when you got to find somewhere what makes them tick. For sometimes that was when our oldest was younger. It was like, okay, you don't get to read. That was the only thing that mattered. So yeah, but I don't recommend it either.
And how do you cultivate that?
I think that was her.
I truly,
when they were little,
truly,
just a lot of reading.
That was
reading.
them.
So
That's
cool.
who God created, because I used to, jokingly say that like we were around other kids, you know, you see other kids throwing tantrums or getting upset, and like our older two were just way more mild, and they, for the most part, like they didn't do that. And I felt really great about myself as a parent, because I was like, we are really killing it. And then we had a third, and that all changed
so much.
So I'm just truly, it's, you know, it's who God created, because they've made it easy in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. One of the cool things about having older kids is they start to see why you did some of the things. Like an example, just thinking of what you had just mentioned, was like we were out and like this kid was throwing a fit, and my kid looked at me and was like, "You wouldn't have let us do that." I'm like, "Nope, we would have been out at the car until you were ready to come back in." And he's like, "Thank you." You know, and so like the things that they don't necessarily appreciate but are for their good, you know, it's just like God, like he does. Sometimes we go through things that we don't want to be going through or whatever, but he always ends up working them out for our good. And because he's good, we can trust him not only with our own lives, but with our kids' lives.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, as far as like our rhythm of our day, but if I were to like, now I'm just processing it now as you're asking the question, like Sundays, Wednesdays, Tuesday, Monday nights, usually like prepping for, like I said, like sometimes I had homework.
Yeah, it was like a Bible study.
Yeah,
was their
and
Wednesday
so
night
like, so we would do that, and then like Jackie reading, or like, I think one of the things for us is giving them some avenues that they know, like reading your Bible or worship music, or like for me, like we were just talking about this before we started, is I'll turn on my radio and it'll pop up this guy with this accent. And they're like, who is this? And it's Alistair Begg. And so it's like his little podcast or his sermon that he's on a podcast, whatever it is. And so they see it with us. Like I would say that is the biggest thing. And then like praying for meals, like that's hard for people with the speed of life to sit down. And we still sit down quite a bit for meals.
Especially in the
like,
summer.
And and we have
summer's different.
And we have a small
rhythm
home,
entirely.
And that small home lends itself to us always being together.
Yeah.
So there are little things that like we didn't plan on, but you can like see God's work in, hey, but this is kind of how I'm going to mold things for you to work.
I like that.
So kind of where we aren't as good, you can see his fingerprint kind of pushing us in the right direction, which is helpful.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it is something, it's funny that you mentioned it, but like just having those opportunities to be together. And like you said too, like even just sharing a meal together as much as you can, I think we just see that is so good. There's a lot of stats and stuff that are out there about families that regularly have a mealtime together, and like the closeness that they talk about and everything else. But sometimes it can feel like you're not really together because you're all just kind of sitting there in silence, and you know, or if the food's really good, you're not talking to each other. And that's where you get like to just be present. I think, like you said too, I think that's so good. But I also like what you said as well about again that modeling of it. Your kids they're gonna hear what you say is important to you, but then they're going to see what's important to you as well. And I know different aspects where I've been convicted with my kids is like they, you know, if they see me on my phone a lot, then they're gonna know that my phone is very valuable to me. You know, and no matter what I'm doing on my phone, they're gonna see it's the phone. So this is still a struggle for me, but like to when I'm reading scripture to make sure that I read it like out of an actual paper Bible so that they see, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm not, and it's good for my ADHD brain to like not get distracted by everything else that's in my phone. But
Same.
But like even, and it's funny because then they'll see that and they'll be like, so, you know, like, what are you doing? What are you, what are you looking at? And, you know, like being able to sit and, you know, read the little ones something out of, you know, the big kid Bible, and, you know, try to either find those stories that I know that they're going to get, or find those things that I think that they can digest. But also too, I think it's good to like, to expose them to the fact that like, oh, the Bible's for grownups too. It's not just the story as they get older, you know. I'm not saying that you talk about like the violent parts of scripture when they're, you know, like 4 and 5 years old, but to recognize that like there is stuff in the Bible that is real. It's real life. And unfortunately in history and in life, people get sick, people die, people, you know.
And our kids, like some of those stuff, those are the things that as they're getting older, they've already heard the stories, but an intricate detail is, that's what they want to know. That's what, but you were saying like that consistency. I think that is an advantage that we have with our jobs, is that we are with our actual kids a lot. So just the sitting down, some families get to, but our kids are with us. They do things with us all the time. And then that summer is, and like Jackie's working right now, but it's part-time, and or all do jobs that are part-time, but we still have a lot of time with them. So if they know where our values come from, which they do, and then if we give them an avenue as they get older to seek, read, and grow, if they can see what we've modeled and what we did, I think that is just the biggest thing for them, is we're not the ones that are going to lead them to Christ. Like that is them and Christ. Like that is the relationship piece. So for them, just seeing kind of how we behave, how we act, how we model, what we want to do, how we want to be more like Christ. But we get an advantage to that because we're with our kids a lot. I'm in the same school building. They get to see me interact with all of their friends. Like I like to coach their friends. And so there are, I think
they would probably say, like, we're talking about modeling, and I'm not to be, I mean, we should be, but neither of us are sitting down reading our Bibles all that often.
No.
And we should be more. But they probably are seeing more service, more, that's probably a big
works and service and things that we talk
value
about.
that they would see in our home, I guess, and that we encourage them to do for others, and that they will see, especially Grant, doing for others too. So I don't know if we'll get to it later, but there was one question you had sent us about like what the world expects versus what you think the Bible expects, and that was like a big thing to me, that just that the world is saying serve yourself, and the Bible says serve others. And I guess we'll see, but I hope that they, you know, will have seen that and will want to live that out. So,
and like Jackie said,
that's probably a big part of our rhythm, our family. And we're
pretty, I would say, also like critical of just each other and kind of how we go through things. And so, and not necessarily,
and of them.
Yeah.
Probably.
And not necessarily in a bad way.
Yeah.
So I think like Jackie's saying, like how we could read our Bibles more. I think they see that too. And they're like, oh, you guys say that you have areas to improve on. And I think that's big for them. Like, you're not a finished product. You still mess up. And like, it is a very biblical view of how we are. And we try to keep that, even though it sometimes gets out of flux.
Well, that's one of the things we've talked about, even like in our Sunday morning huddles, about like, it's okay if kids ask you a question and you don't know the answer, to say, gosh, that's a great question. I have no idea, or I haven't thought about that before. Let's do some research together, or let me look into that and get back to you. And then that lets them see you as a lifelong learner and not just the holder of all the answers.
Yeah, I definitely don't have them.
And I think that's so good to share, like, you're, you know, as much as you want to have every answer for your kids, and you have the benefit of being around longer, you know, and you, hopefully you do have more of those answers, but it's that desire to always improve, always seek, find ways to serve more, to cultivate those fruits, you know, like we said, those fruits of the Spirit. And, but also, like you said too, to have opportunities when you can show them to your kids, whether it is in how you handle a disagreement, or in how you, you know, handle a moment of correction, you know, or whatever that is, to be able to say, hey, there's ways, bringing it back to what we said before, there's ways in which I'm still learning, and there's ways in which I am not going to do this right. And there's ways that I am going to need to ask for your forgiveness, and I think that's something that has been really, really exciting to see parents lean into, because I think not that long ago is that idea that my rule is law, and whatever I say, whatever I do, that is what sticks, right? And lately we're starting to see that trend in parenting to be no, it's okay to tell your kids that you're sorry, that you messed up, that I treated you harsher than was needed at that time, or even with our kids calling us out when we promised to do something and didn't, or whatever that is. You're
Fair,
I'm still going to hold you to that standard.
Yeah.
But the way I approached and stressed that standard can be different.
Exactly.
Can be more godly.
Yeah. I think that's
it's living in that balance of truth and grace too, right? We want to be truthful. We want to call out where it's wrong, but we also want to help guide and offer grace. And so now's the time, when they're under 18, for them to learn some of those lessons, right? So that they can have the consequences or whatever, but use it as a learning experience where it's not going to impact them later in life. And having those moments where you can have those conversations are super important.
Yeah. And I think too, just the reminder that I am going to be friendly with my kids, but I'm not supposed to be their friend. I am their parent. I am their guide. I am their, we say this to our girls a lot of the time too. And it's what's mommy and daddy's job? It's to make sure that you become healthy, functioning adults who love Jesus. I really feel that's our responsibility. And yes, sometimes that can be incredibly fun, and we can do so many cool things. And that's really good ways for us to connect and share your passions and do all this stuff. Sometimes that means that we're going to have to say no to certain things. Sometimes it means that we're going to have to put limits on certain things. Sometimes it means that we're going to have to just get rid of certain things, and that's hard. But we always try to have that posture, like you've said, and shown in modeling and everything else. I think you guys agree that it's the end goal is ultimately how can I point you to Jesus? How can I make sure that, but then also how can you become functioning members of society?
It's a big piece of it.
I think that's why I think we got married. That's why we're a good team. Sometimes Jackie can be the grace and I can be the truth, and I can learn a little bit about being graceful from her and so forth, and each way around. So it's a good dynamic. I think we usually, would you say that? Yeah. I would say we usually are pretty good at kind of supporting each other, and the kids see that too. So I think that consistency in modeling for us is a big deal. And then it's nice to have this conversation because okay, what other things am I not modeling that I need to model?
Do you want to share a few of those with it? No,
I would. I've got it. My
list.
brain is just, I talk quite a bit, but I'm thinking just boom, 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 things are going all over. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things, I can't remember who touched on it, but it was when we're talking about being with our kids and trying to get them to have a godly attitude or to know exactly what, their next step is or whatever, we want them to make that right choice, right? And we can want as much as we want, but if they don't want to make that right choice, it makes it harder. And one of the things I've noticed is there's a lot of parents that just want their kids to like them all the time. And I want my kids to like me too.
It's hard when they don't.
But I want to do the right thing for them more than I want them to like me. And just helping parents remember that your job is to raise your kids, not to be their friend. There's time when they become adults and the relationship changes and, you can have more of that friendship relationship, but sometimes the answer is no. And it's because I'm the parent and the answer is no. That doesn't mean I'm not going to listen to what your opinions are or offer you choices or whatever, but the final decision making does come down to me, and that is biblical. And, God sets you up as the leaders of your household. Have you guys experienced anything like that or seen the repercussions of that in your careers or?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I feel like our kids are probably we're just starting to near that, a little bit of that attitude and a little bit of, and maybe just a little bit of maybe our answers are not always what they're hoping to hear and just walking through that. I'm sure there'll be more to come. I remember very distinct times when I was really mad about a parent, like one of my own parents' decisions to not let me. It's usually to not let me do something. And now I'm so thankful for those times that they said no. And so I guess I'm holding on to that, that like, even if my kid's really mad at me or, you know, upset with whatever decision or disappointed that they don't get to do X, Y, Z with their friends, that maybe someday they'll be thankful too, because it protected them or it, you know, set them up. I mean, I guess we haven't really gotten into the whole phone thing at our house.
But we're in it all the time working in the schools. Right?
Yeah.
You're around
but like
it.
that's a big one that I anticipate probably will. I mean, our oldest is kind of like we always said he's jokingly kind of like an old man. So he may not push us that hard on it. I don't know. But I know that that's going to be an attractive thing the further we go into the junior high years. And it's just not something we're going to do.
I think that's one thing about parenting is we have a lot of like-minded Christ-following friends and some that are like-minded with that background, but not necessarily Christ-following. But we have a lot of people guiding our kids that we're around in the right way.
Yeah.
And so that is very beneficial. So sometimes when it comes to the phone thing or other things, we don't have to fight the battles that some people, because our friendships align with a lot of values within our friends. I don't know how to say this. Our friends have a lot of the same values. That's it. So therefore, it makes it easier.
Speaks into, because like all of the other parents in that circle are also kind of going along with the same.
And so that sometimes makes things a little bit easier. Interest-wise, value-wise, all of those things can be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, if you go like extreme examples, it just makes you sad when you realize what this kid is, you know, either been allowed to do or wasn't protected from for the, you know, fact that the parent didn't want to say no or didn't want to.
And they just don't know. The kids just don't know sometimes how far it can. I mean, it's.
And I think parents don't often know, because, you know, when you're living in the school setting every day, you're watching these behaviors and you're seeing the outcomes of them every day on a larger scale, because it's to so many kids. So it's easy for us to be like, you're definitely not doing that. You're definitely not doing that. But if I weren't living that every day, if I were in an office somewhere else or at some other job, I wouldn't know. And I'd be like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. Okay. You know? So I think we have a big advantage in that way. I don't know if our kids would call it an advantage.
And Jackie's a good sounding board for me, because like as a kid, like with the music I listened to or the shows I watched, they weren't always appropriate. And so like what you're exposed to, your hearts and minds, like you want it to be aligned with what God wants. And Jackie is good at reminding me like, hey, remember there's a warning label on that's PG-13 R, like you need to look.
I wasn't allowed to watch like anything.
Yes. And so.
And I'm just thankful for that now.
Yeah. And it's good for me to just for us to go back and forth to be like, okay, are they old enough to see this? Can we discuss the message of this movie? You know, are they at that level? Or no, we got to wait 5-6 years, or maybe that's something they'd never need to see, even though we saw it or I saw it. So
there's even been some things like my upbringing wasn't as like rigid as my wife's was, for lack of a better term, to where like I did listen to a lot, you know, very similar to yours. It sounds like, you know, listen to different music, you know, watch different things. And it's been interesting because there have been a couple of times where like a Halloween episode of a cartoon or something will come on, and it's like, there's a couple of them that are legitimately scary, you know, and, you know, the rest of the episodes that they have of a certain cartoon, you know, or whatever is pretty tame. But then this Halloween episode comes on and it's like, oh, that's a lot scarier than I thought. And, you know, my sleep gets ruined by the kids' sleep getting ruined, you know, and things like that. It's like,
yes, that happens all the time.
That was my bad. I thought they could handle this cartoon. Didn't realize that the Halloween episode was going to pop on, you know, especially now with streaming to where they have.
Or you're like, oh, I remember watching this or listening to this. And then you listen to it through parents' ears
100%.
and eyes, and you're like, oh, okay, Lord, thanks for showing me that.
Yes. Yes. Very true.
Yeah, all kinds of media things to be aware of. Do you have any resources that you guys use to like filter through some of that?
Yeah, I listened to WBGL a lot, and they and then I learned of the Plugged In movie review. So if you have never Googled that, it's really helpful. It gives a really thorough review of any movie, most any, and like details. Why is this a caution? Why is this, this particular violence this is exactly what happens, or the language, this is exactly how many times this is said or this is done. And it just makes it a lot easier to make a decision. It's like, when you put it that way, do I really want them to sit down and take all that in?
Well, Common Sense Media is another one that's very similar. And it's like, they will get like as specific as, the like drug and alcohol content, right? Like, and the parents have a glass of wine on the table, and it's like, okay,
can I manage
so
that or
I can
not?
make a decision about that versus,
like that.
or like we'll say, almost says a curse word, or uses something in place of, and it's like, those are good things to like be aware of, so you can make an informed decision. And at first you're just like, wow, you really got into detail there. But like, the more you like look into it, you're like, I appreciate that you really got into the detail there. So like, just being an informed parent, before you make a decision. And then like, if you're stopping your kid from seeing something that other people are, maybe offering some kind of like alternative, like, hey, I'm not really comfortable with you watching that movie, but what if you invite all your friends over and we watch this movie? One of the greatest things that, some older parent told me was like, you want your house to be a place where the kids want to come, because then you're seeing who they are around their friends, and the amount of conversations you can have while you're preparing a meal or getting a snack ready, or, dropping something off or walking through the room is amazing.
Yeah. I heard the big draw there is, well, at least having boys, is have the good snacks.
Oh,
If you have the good snacks, the friends will want to come to your house.
You budget for that, and that's money well spent.
I thought she was just getting ready to tell me a swimming pool, because she really wants a swimming pool.
Oh, I do.
So I thought she was just getting ready to say
you heard the S.
sales pitch.
We just took cars out. So.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
So swimming pool and snacks. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's in the cards, definitely. But snacks.
Yeah.
We always had lots of food at our house, and we went to our house a lot.
And it's amazing. Like, they don't even want something necessarily fancy, like pizza, spaghetti, breakfast for
Bagel
dinner.
bites.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that makes you the cool parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of Skylar's good friends loves the dried mango. If you see those, and Sam's just got like the big bag of those. Don't. Yeah. And she loves it. The reason we started getting the big Sam's bags instead of like the little Aldi's bags was because every time Genevieve comes over, she always has so much of the dried mango.
Some
it's
of
like,
them.
Awesome.
Sweet. I'd love to provide that for you.
That's so funny.
Well, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, know that one, we really appreciate you guys very much. And this is probably not going to be the only time we have this kind of conversation. So we'll probably be bringing you back on. But before we wrap it up, what would be like one thing you either wish you were given about raising kids, like one piece of advice or something like that you wish you were given before getting into it? Or like, especially as teachers, what is that thing that you would love to be able to say to a majority amount of parents, like a piece of advice on raising their kids in the Lord?
Ooh, that question wasn't in there, Stephen.
I know.
I don't know. I would say advice, it would be consistency.
Yeah.
Because you're been kind of a recurring theme.
Yeah, you're not going to be
like
the
that.
same as every other parent. And your kids aren't going to be the same as every other kid. So like, don't compare them to A, B, C, D, but be consistent in what you do. And where do you get your information from? Are you just grabbing stuff from parenting books online, or are you actually like trying to base it on things from the Bible? Are you trying to make biblical kids and then be consistent that way? But your perception, your perspective is going to be different, but be consistent. Let your kids see. And then when you see there's something wrong, if you've been consistent, you know what you can change. But if you're just kind of all over the place, I would say that is probably the biggest advice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that we're far enough along to be giving advice.
I would just say that we don't. Would you agree that we try to be consistent?
Yeah, I mean, we say that, but I think of like really little things. Like when all of our kids were little, like a phrase I felt like I never stopped saying was "listen the first time."
First time.
You need to listen first time.
Gosh. I still
you
say
listen
that.
first time.
First time obedience.
Right.
And I know one of our friends that had kids a little bit later than us, like heard us saying that and was like, I want to use that. I mean, it doesn't, I'm sure everyone says it. I feel like everyone says it. But that was something that, like, I don't know, for whatever reason stuck with her. Another thing we've watched I don't know, just being serving in the church or in the schools has been kind of like thinking that littles are too little for those expectations, or are too little for things like, we're going to listen the first time, or we're going to use our eyes, it's just like an attitude of like, oh, it's just a kid. Like when an adult talks to them, like he's just being a kid. But we really value, I guess, those opportunities to like have our children listen to what that person said, look them in the eye, and respond, or
they're not always great about that. That's
be
okay.
respectful.
It's just,
we're still working on that. But that just little things like that, I guess, like being consistent in that way. I feel like we're both like really big people.
If God thinks people matter, you should think people matter.
And we really do. Like we both really love people. We are very social and enjoy being and knowing about and knowing other people. It's just something that kind of fascinates both of us. And I think our kids are learning that, but we've probably maybe shadowed a little bit of that, or I don't know, they maybe echo that a little bit because we value it, and we've been consistent with those little things of like when you interact with others, when you have the opportunity to be helpful, when you have the chance to speak with someone or learn about them, like you show them that they're valued just like God, does. So I don't know. I think those are probably some of the biggest things we're consistent.
And the people that impacted me the most probably to become a Christian were people who showed interest in me. And like when you show interest into people, they're more receptive to what God says through you. And so if they like you, doesn't mean you have to be liked, but if they respect you, doesn't mean you have to be respected by all these people. But just these certain things, if you can get those and establish those with people, then God has a good chance to grow that with you. But if you're not acting like God and you're being mean to people and you're not showing them interest and you're not valuing them, and sometimes teaching our kids how to look at somebody in the eye that seems like, oh, you're faking it. But that is how you show them love. And that's how you teach yourself how to value people. And so I think once they do that, then that's sometimes when you give people the opportunity, God can work through you as well.
I think the relationship piece is really big. And I think having some friends, like a few close friends who can walk with you through parenting struggles and can love your kid through kid struggles and, not judge them, but to be praying for them and to be praying for you. Our kids' faith isn't a product of anything that we do. It's between God and the kid, like you said earlier. And we tend to think that their success is reflected on us or their failure is reflected on us. But it's really their relationship with Jesus. And we're just trying to do everything we can in order to make sure that that's who they're actively pursuing.
For sure.
I'm sure we've all had friends or even kids I've seen, even our own kids, where they've gotten, where they struggle, where they didn't when they were younger, and like, oh, but why do we struggle here now? Or something where they were really struggling, but are awesome at now. But sometimes none of those conflict or go with God. Like you can have a kid who's really struggling in school and still be a Christ follower. You can have your own kid. And so sometimes I think we think, oh, just because a kid behaves really well means they're also following Jesus and they're doing these things right.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just remember, like God created everybody and we're trying to get everybody to the same spot. Yeah.
And no one's a lost cause.
No.
Right.
I think that's a great mindset to keep. I don't know if somebody would offer me advice.
I mean, there's
oh my gosh, I could have millions of things.
I feel like, there's the things that people always say, like it goes so fast, enjoy every minute and all that. All those kind of cliche things that are true, but I don't know. I guess our biggest thing is consistency. Yeah, in what you value most.
I like that. Well, thank you both very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
For joining us in this conversation and to let people out there know if you have any questions as far as raising kids or if anything from this conversation sparks any ideas or things that you want more info on, put them in the comments because we love to look through those and hopefully it'll be the source of another podcast. We'll bring you guys back and we'd love to have you again. And Elaine, thank you so much for joining us as well and providing such great insight. So now go be the church where you live, work, and play. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for downloading this episode of Go Be the Church. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and follow us on social media.